Hey guys, it's TMRAC coming back at you with another video. Welcome back to my channel. This week, I want to say week, but I'm not sure. Okay, well, this week we're going to focus a little bit on children with behavioral problems. And I like to say disruptive behavior problems because the behavior problems really do represent a disruption in life, a disruption in school, a disruption in emotions and thinking abilities. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm just going to jump right into the benefits of this video for you, which are going to be over here. The benefits for you in this video today is that you're going to be able to identify potential triggers, I should say, to your child's disruptive behavior problems. You're also going to be able to explore some other areas that a lot of mental health professionals in schools tend to overlook. So I want to focus on those for you today. So if you haven't seen my first video, I'm going to link it up here for you so that you can go back and check it out. My first video focused exclusively on disruptive behaviors in the school system and what parents should and should not say to a school regarding their child. So in this video today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're just going to briefly touch on the school system, but I do want to point out a couple of things that I think highly influences kids who have disruptive behavior problems. So the first thing that I believe influences kids who are struggling with disruptive behavioral problems is family dynamics. Family dynamics are wow, they are extremely powerful in families that lack emotion regulation, families who lack open communication, families who also lack the ability to think and process things and not react impulsively. Family dynamics are also extremely influential in families where kids are being left to themselves to raise themselves, to function in school, and also in families where there's trauma. So let me just point out a couple of things in terms of family dynamics. Family dynamics may include not only the behaviors and the belief systems of the parents, but it also can include the parents' mental health or personality disorders. So I want to highlight two particular disorders that I think negatively influence kids with behavioral disorders, and that's narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. One of the things I see in counseling with my families who are struggling with behavioral problems is borderline personality traits completely influencing the younger generation or completely influencing the child. Some BPD or borderline personality disorder traits that may negatively affect and influence a child includes impulsive behavior, a child seeing that the parent has cut before, or overhearing that the parent is suicidal and internalizing that message as them being the reason for it. The challenges, I'll put it this way, challenges with interpersonal relationships. So the inability to process information necessary for controlling emotions. Parents who have an inability to see beyond their emotions within a relationship. When kids are struggling with parents who are dealing with that, they're most likely going to act out in school. Part of it is they're internalizing the messages that they receive from the parent with BPD. The other part of that is that they're internalizing their own self-talk and starting to believe it. And I'm going to put the definition of self-talk over here just so that you can visually see what it is. But when you have a child who is sensitive or perfectionistic or very intuitive and wise beyond their years, you're going to see these kind of kids negatively or be influenced negatively by, I should say, the parent with BPD. Very emotionally and psychologically intuitive kids tend to have a hard time regulating their own behaviors when they've internalized messages from a negative parent. I hate to put it that way. Oops, I'm so sorry. That's my camera beeping over there. I apologize. But I was just saying that I hate to put it that way, that parents who are negative or parents that have BPD traits, cause their child to struggle in school or struggle with behaviors but it is true. Not for all families struggling with a parent with BPD, but for some, if not most. So I think that's important to focus on. Now, the narcissistic part of this is a parent who is self-consumed, constantly worried about themselves, constantly wanting to get the attention, gain control, be better than they really are, outshine others, get attention. Those kind of parents can cause kids to struggle with behaviors. Part of it is because the parent is constantly pacifying their own narcissistic need over here, while the child over in this area is trying to figure out how to survive in a world that he or she has no clue about, right? So family dynamics are extremely important, especially if the parent has borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The next thing that tends to influence kids who have disruptive behavior disorders is a broken family system. And what I mean by that is a family system, not so much where there's a single parent, but more so households where it's very clear parents do not get along, or parent relationships where it's very clear that there's a divorce, a separation, there's hatred towards the other partner or spouse, there's envy, there's jealousy, there's rage and anger, and right. So kids who are very receptive and perceptive when it comes to their parents' relationship is going to struggle with behavioral problems. Some kids can compartmentalize their emotions and say, okay, I feel this in my heart today, but then now I have to focus on school, or I feel this in my heart today and now I have to focus on building my own relationships with friends, or doing my homework, or staying in school, right? Some kids can compartmentalize. Other kids, however, struggle with that, and those kind of kids often end up internalizing their emotions, skipping school, not wanting to go to school because they can't manage their emotions and their thoughts with the demands and expectations of a public school system. We also have a situation where kids may also struggle with developing other relationships with other kids their own age. Part of the reason is because they start to internalize negative messages about themselves. I'm stupid, I'm not smart, I'm not pretty, I'm not handsome, I'm not interesting, right? I'm boring, So I think it's important that the parent relationship, even if it's broken, have a united front, or make it look like you guys as a couple, or the parents of the situation, I should say, are together. If that's too difficult, then it might be important to talk to the child about what's going on in the relationship between both of the parents. Some kids are mature enough to listen to a parent explain, this is why me and dad do not get along, and this is why, dad and your mom does not get along, that kind of thing. All right, so that's another one. The last one that I want to point out is children who are easily bored, children who are highly intellectual, and kids who are artistic and creative. They tend to struggle with disruptive behavior problems. When we're dealing with a kid who has a hard time following rules and directions and mending and blending into a school system, we have to keep in mind that not all kids are being lazy or rebellious or oppositional or defiant. Some kids are strictly creative and artistic, very smart, but they have to have a different approach to their education. I think that's one of the things that influenced a lot of my own upbringing, was that I was placed into a public school system. There's a little bit of self-disclosure here for you. I was placed at the age of 6 in a public school system that I hated completely, and I was a very smart, energetic, happy-go-lucky, creative and artistic child, and I actually was later labeled as gifted at the age of 10, 11, because I was at least maybe 3 grades above my actual grade. But I remember my mom telling me the story, and I remember experiencing some of it. And so I'll share that with you now. I was 6 years old, going on 7, and I started struggling with teachers. I also started struggling with the schoolwork. Did I get along with teachers? Yes. Was I kind of like the teacher's pet in school? Yes. But I found myself nodding off in class at 6, 7. I found myself very bored and disengaged. And one of the reasons why was because I was not being stimulated on the level that I needed to be stimulated. I was not being educated in the way that I needed to be educated. And so I began to fail. I began to slip away. I began to block every little bit of knowledge my teachers were trying to give me. I just didn't find them interesting, and I also just couldn't hold on any longer. So my mom was called into a meeting to talk about me. And to make a long story short, my mom said that she not only felt intimidated by the school system, but she also saw that they were incapable of really understanding who I was as a person. And so my mom got fed up because I would come home crying all the time that I hated school, even though I loved to learn. And my mom said, you know what, I'm going to homeschool you. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to homeschool you. And thank God she was able to quit her job and homeschool me. And my younger brother, she decided to just go ahead and homeschool him too. But she homeschooled me from the age of 7 all the way into the age of 18. And I ended up going to college earlier, graduating earlier and everything. But I was so grateful to have a mom that could see beyond the school system, that could see beyond their limitations for me. And she was able to develop within me what I needed to survive in my adulthood. So I do hope that little bit of self-disclosure kind of gives you a different view of kids who are struggling with disruptive behavior problems. Again, not all kids who are struggling are not trying. Sometimes they are screaming for a different approach. And unfortunately, our school system is not designed to cater to those kind of kids. All right, guys, so thanks so much for being with me today. This was part 2, I believe. Yeah, because my first video I published on Monday. So this is part 2 of the 3-part series on kids with disruptive behavioral disorders or problems. Because I do want to point out that not all kids who are disruptive have a disorder. Some are just struggling with problems at this time. But stay tuned for my next video on Monday. What I'm going to be talking about is kids who are struggling with trauma and divorce and disruptive behavior problems. And so I want to point out a couple things there. I also want to give you some tips on how to help your child through the process of struggling with disruptive behaviors on Monday. And that's going to be the final part of this 3-part series. If you have a video that you would like for me to record or a topic that you would like for me to discuss, feel free to put it down in the comment section below. Also, you can get to me, or you can contact me, I should say, on my Twitter page. You can also contact me on my website, anchoredinKnowledge.com. I will put all that information at the end of the video so that you can check me out and send any information that you'd like to send. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I will talk to you really, really soon. Bye-bye.